It probably goes back a long, long way. So out of college, back when I was 18, 19, 20, I guess, went to do some work experience for the local company. They offered me a job, so I was there for a couple of years, and then moved on to another design agency. Was there for a couple of years. I then basically set up on my own with a friend, and we worked together for a few years, basically with a small company until he left. Long story short, then I was back on my own, started employing people, ended up building up a small design agency, had 4 or 5 people working for me, did that for 15 or more years, I guess, until I realised I wasn't really enjoying it. All I was doing is management and servicing clients and finance, etc. I wasn't really doing what I was good at and what I enjoyed. So basically just downsized then over the space of a few years to get back to just basically being on my own again. And then, I disposed of an office that I was working out of and went back to working from home. And essentially the journey to being a freelancer was, through there really. And much better and much more enjoyable, I think, really, but back on my own again. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess, like I say, I feel like I've been a freelancer all my life, I guess, really, because even, apart from the first sort of 4 years of working for somebody, I've essentially worked for myself from when I was probably 23 or 4, something like that. So even though I was kind of running a company and employing people, I still kind of felt like I was freelancing essentially. But it was only really when I, as I said, started to just work back on my own again, which is about 6 or 7 years ago now, I guess. From that moment of when I, made the decision about, essentially becoming back on my own again from running a business, employing people. So, I guess 7 years or so now, I guess, being a freelancer. I think the platform's really easy to use. It's been super easy as far as logging my time, logging my hours, and the approval of obviously the work that I've been doing, through to super quick payment, obviously at the end of the month when when the jobs have been completed. So from that point of view, that's fantastic from a freelancer's point of view, because normally I do end up obviously having to chase people for money, whereas obviously working via the platform, it tends to be completely automated, I guess. So it's it's very, very simple, very smooth, and very hassle free. Yeah. Okay, so I have a general process with any kind of web design, and it sort of, I guess, followed that generally. Obviously, you've got a discovery phase where it's doing a bit of research into the company, understanding what the product is, what their client does, their industry, their marketplace, competition, etc., what their USPs are. So generally researching is the first stage. From there, it's obviously defining what I'm actually trying to do. In this case, it was a clear kind of brief from you guys at TalentDesk's explaining what it was that was needed as far as the kind of refreshing of the brand and the design. So obviously, it was more, the goals were really to improve the design, improve the kind of user flow, and make sure that the call to actions, etc., were clear, and and that my design didn't obviously fog any of that, or any, so obviously there to improve it. So so once that's done, onto the sort of the actual design side, which is again looking for inspiration of other websites, etc., seeing what the current trends are. I normally spend a bit of time looking at the existing website and from a user's point of view, and trying to again define what I like about it, what I don't like about it. And then from there, it's straight into the design. Sometimes I would obviously do a wireframe. In this case, it wasn't required. And again, with a new web design, I would tend to probably do a sitemap, etc. But again, that wasn't required because it was all existing, and it was more about improving the design aspect of what was already there. So so yeah, obviously when we went off the design, it was we started a bit weirdly with the About Us page. Normally I'd start on a home page, but obviously, we started with the About Us pages. I think that was a new page we needed to do. So it did take quite a few iterations, I think, before we really kind of got to where we're happy with it. But then obviously going through that process to get to that point where that one kind of page was essentially designed, it then led obviously into defining what the rest of the site was going to look like. So the solutions pages then kind of followed that same style, and as the design sort of developed, like I say, it defined a bit of a template style. It defined kind of how the graphics were going to appear. We introduced new the stock images alongside the kind of UI elements. We also obviously had the existing angles and semicircle graphics that were obviously on the existing brand, which I used and kind of incorporated into some of the graphics, made them larger, made the whole thing look a bit bigger and bolder, I think, and a bit fresher. So yeah, by the time we actually got onto doing the homepage, which was quite some time afterwards, I think the style had pretty much been set up by then, and it was more about just working through the actual design sections of the different modules on each page and getting them looking right and getting the messaging correct with the graphics, etc. So it's so yeah, that's obviously then from there it's kind of handover then to the developer. So there's a bit of work then at the end of the process of the design, just to kind of get everything high res, everything's all check it's all ready to be handed over, and before passing on to the developer. So yeah. Absolutely, yeah. I hope everybody's happy with it, but yeah, I'm really pleased with it. I think it's come out really well. It's been a really good project to be involved in. I think the final result definitely is a nice step on from the existing site. It's fresher. I think it definitely looks a bit more modern. It's more in keeping, I think, with the actual Talent Desk app and as a product. So I think, sometimes I only get to do maybe a homepage and a few internal pages for a site, and then I maybe hand it over, quite early on to a developer who then sort of fleshes out the rest of it. Whereas this case, I got to do pretty much every single kind of page, I'd say, which is really nice. So I could make sure everything was really consistent across, the styling and all the graphics were really consistent. I think it looks quite cohesive then. Obviously, it looks like, each page has been thought about, rather than, sometimes sites can kind of go a little bit astray sometimes once they've been developed. Again, yeah, from the development side, it was really nice to work with Graham and to understand some of the constraints that he had as we were going along, and to obviously then, kind of adapt the design a little bit if needed to make sure that it really did, come out as close to kind of my original designs as possible. That does really help, having a good rapport with the developer. I think it makes a big difference to kind of how the end result is. So yeah, I mean, I hope, I'm really pleased with it. I hope everybody at Talent Desk is as well, and there's been some good feedback from it, hopefully, from everybody. And I hope obviously as well, the end result of a redesign is to kind of make the site better, make it work better, and hopefully improve what the website does. And hopefully improve the sort of conversion rate as well at the end of the day. So yeah, hopefully that will happen, once it's once time will tell, I guess. So I guess I think it would be it's two different ways of working entirely, I guess. Working with a freelancer, you do get the direct access to them. You're not kind of shielded by an account handler, etc. So I think that's a real positive. Also from a freelancer's point of view, that is a real positive. It's nice to speak directly with a client rather than you almost feeling like you're getting past secondhand information quite often. So that's a major benefit, I think, from my point of view, and from what I hear back from clients as well. People like to be able to speak directly with the person involved in the actual design of it as well. So I think that's a major consideration. I guess one of the negatives, I guess, working with a freelancer, you are then you are only working with one person, you're not working with a team of people, so it may take a bit longer. Freelancers do obviously tend to have a number of projects ongoing at any one time, so you may find that a job potentially may take a bit longer working with a freelancer than working with a team who's obviously maybe on it all the time. So I would have to pick up and drop obviously a client from time to time as I'm working on other client work, but I normally schedule it in quite well, so I'd make sure everybody knows when I'm working on it and when I can't work on it, etc. But yeah, I guess one of the other benefits, I suppose, at the end of the day would be from a budget point of view. Obviously, I know that an agency have larger overheads, more people, etc. So they do obviously have to charge more money. When you're working directly with somebody, all they have is their freelancer can work from home, computer, internet connection. So their cost is a lot lower. And I think from my point of view, I think you probably get just as good a end result. Like I say, I think that the direct access to a client is what makes it work so well. Particularly with Zoom, etc. Nowadays, people just become used to working in that way. So previously, people didn't really want to work, remotely. But now everybody's happy to work remotely. Everybody's used to working remotely, and so I think you can get the benefit from being able to pick a freelancer who could be anywhere in the world and work with them directly, rather than having to kind of use somebody local to you. So I think that's a definite benefit for working that way with a freelancer.